Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. Thank you so much for watching. This is our 34th year of bringing you films for, by, and about our community and its allies. This is, however, our first hybrid festival. We have very limited schedule of films in theater and a pretty robust schedule of films that are virtual for everybody who can either come in person or who wants to stay home and watch from there. We have a lot of great shorts programs this year. One of my absolute favorites is our comedy shorts block, which is very, very funny. So I'm happy today that we have three filmmakers to talk about their films, and I'm gonna let them go around the Zoom room and introduce themselves. We'll start with Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Smith. I'm the writer-director of The Test.
And Jamie.
Hi, I'm James Patrick Nelson. I'm the actor, writer, producer, director of Waking Up.
And hi, I'm Dave Quantic. I'm the creator of Stephen and James' Best Girlfriends.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your films. I mean, all those just fit in extremely well with our comedy block this year. I just want to go around and just talk to you all and just sort of find out a little bit about making the film, how long it took you to do when you started it, and sort of where you are in your process. Are you just starting festivals? Are you ending festivals? So we'll start with Jessica.
Sure. So we made The Test, we shot in one day at the end of 2019. So it was, I think, about a week before Christmas. So we really just kind of snuck in before everything went to hell, essentially. Which, I mean, obviously it's been a really, really difficult couple of years. But I think one thing that's been really great for us is that it's been really nice to have a comedy on the festival circuit this sort of last year and a half, because, it's been a tough time in the world and everyone's really needed to have a bit of a laugh. So so we finished that, in a couple of months. It'll be 2 years ago. So we're really sort of coming to the back end of our festival run, but it's been a really good one. We've sort of virtually traveled the world and done a lot of these Q&As and got to meet a lot of people that we probably wouldn't have gotten to, because being in Australia, we might have maybe gone one place, but we wouldn't have been able to get to LA and Dublin and Atlanta, and so that's been really great. It's been a good couple of years.
Great. James?
Almost exactly the same. Okay. We also shot in one day at the end of 2019, about a week before Christmas, which was glorious and a whirlwind. And it was, I suppose I wrote and developed the script in the summer of 2019 and crowdfunded and built a team and found a location throughout the fall and early winter of that year. Not knowing how resonant an opening shot of an elder lying asleep in a hospital bed would become only a few months later. But the early parts of the pandemic were post-production with the coloring and a sound mix later in the year. And the festival experience has been throughout 2021. We had a bunch of gorgeous ones in the spring and some more exciting ones now, and maybe some more in the future, but we just signed our first license agreement. So I'm excited about that coming up.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My film's a little different in that it is a documentary, and also the interview that I recorded for it was only audio. So I knew from the very beginning that if I did make a short film out of this content, that I would have to craft everything myself. Mm-hmm. And so in a way, it was kind of perfectly positioned for a pandemic filmmaking experience, because I really had to kind of generate everything on my own to portray Stephen's story. And just so you know, it's part of a larger project called The Fruitful Oral History of Queer Sex. I have a podcast that features different interviews from different queer people, and Stephen is in the second season of the podcast. And I originally made this film for the Hump Film Festival in January of last year. So I finished it early on. I think I definitely finished it during the pandemic, because in order to portray the part of the film where it's taking place in a sex club, I had to actually recreate the sex club in my bedroom. So I shot everything really tight and turned it into black and white, and so that was kind of an adventure. And it's had a pretty good run for the Queer Fests, and we're sort of in the thick of it right now. I'm going to go to a new fest soon, and a lot of other different queer fests. So it's been a hugely satisfying experience. I didn't have a lot of acceptances from festivals at first, but then they all just kind of came at once. So I was worried that we would only ever play at Hump, which is a porn-centered festival. So it's fun that it's being shown sort of on the queer circuit.
Well, thank you all, because Jessica, you mentioned a little bit earlier that last year there wasn't a lot of comedy, a lot of comedy in the world. I mean, the films we got last year were all pretty. I mean, not all of them, but we had a lot of dramas last year. We had a lot of serious movies. We didn't have a lot of comedies. And when we started this year, it was like we have so many good comedies to choose from. So it's nice that people are learning that we can laugh again and smile. So anyway, I'm just curious. I know that you earlier you were talking a little bit amongst yourself, but have you all seen each other's films, or have you had a chance to see any of your? Oh, you'll have to watch them as part of our blog.
I saw Dave's film a couple of weeks ago, and it was. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about the.
Yeah. There's a sequence that our programmers sort of like hit each other, like sort of remind each other about. But all of your shorts are amazing. I'll start with you, Dave. Talk about, all of your shorts are pretty. I mean, I think, James, yours is, I think, probably the longest. Yours is like 12 minutes, I think.
13 with the credits.
13. Yeah. So, I mean, talk about the process of making a film and getting what you need to do in a short period of time, because when you're 13 minutes, you don't have a lot of time to waste. You really have to go for it and get in. All of you do that really beautifully. But I'll start with you. Can you talk about the process of just making your film and just getting to it, and still managing to make it fully dimensional, and in all of your cases just funny?
I am a professional editor for a PBS station here in Seattle. I've made almost 20 shorts over my 20-year career of filmmaking. I think by now I have figured out how to pare down a film, like a short film, into its essence. Steven's original interview for the Fruit Bowl podcast was over an hour and a half long, and this story about his best friend James probably took up about 10 minutes in all. So I just kept on paring it down, whittling it until it was until it had only the very bare essentials to tell the beginning and ending of the story. And if you've seen the film, it's sort of divided into two. So it's actually two shorter films. So I think that just through experience, and especially with documentary, because that's most of what I deal with now, even at my job, but also just with Fruit Bowl, is that I've started to really know how to pick out the different themes, put them together, and then structure them so that they kind of have a beginning, a middle of it, and an end. And it's just something that you learn to do over time. And I'm fortunate that I have to do it in my job. And so that sort of gives me an extra exercise to sort of fine tune that ability.
Okay. James.
Somewhat different. I suppose this was my first short film. I've been an actor my whole professional life and beyond, and I've been confident in calling myself a screenwriter for maybe the last 5 or 6 years, and only quite recently have started to be more intentional about being a producer. Mm-hmm. So with this film, it was my intention to like use those other two skill sets that I'm more confident in as the dominant factor in what makes the film the film. Because for those who've seen it, it's a solo piece, ostensible.
Mhm.
It's my character sitting beside an elder in a hospital, always imagining that potentially he could wake up at any moment, saying the things to him that he'd like to say when he was awake, but the old man never wakes up. And the camera is a single unedited shot that dollies in slowly from a wide into a tight close-up on my face over the 13 minutes. So I had confidence in myself as an actor that I could play that short period of time in a way that would hopefully be sustaining and engaging. But then the challenge on the day was, can I make sure that everything else is well prepared for, well enough that the camera crew and everybody can get set up in good enough time that we can have enough time left at the end of the day to do enough takes to make sure that we get a good one.
Okay.
And we did, but just barely. We did, because they had a really complex dolly track set up to accomplish that long, slow, steady pull in, and they did an amazing job, I think. But we had time to do 10 takes of the monologue, and we used take number 9.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it was down to the end. Yeah.
Great. And Jessica.
Oh, wow. I was going to say congratulations for shooting a 13-minute film in one day. That's, my film's 8 minutes, and that was an intense day. So yeah, that was probably our biggest challenge. We had one day to shoot the whole thing across 2 locations. So there was a location change sort of towards the end of the day as well, which was a little bit of a challenge. But I think, it's hard. Obviously, one of the biggest challenges that short filmmakers make, I think, can be budget. We were self-funded, so we really had to just use the bare minimum in terms of people, most of whom were very generous with their time and their equipment, and scheduling as well. A week before Christmas, trying to find a day that everyone was available, that the locations were available, and that was a bit of a puzzle that we struggled to put together, but we sort of finally got there. But it meant that we lost some crew members, so we had to find other crew members. But those things all kind of ended up getting the best team together for the project, which it was it all worked out, I guess, in the end. And then on the day, I think having some great people around me to I took my watch off at the start of the day, and up until that point I'd been producing and figuring out the schedule and doing all that sort of stuff, so I knew how much time we had and what we had to get in that amount of time. But I really just wanted to focus on being the director on the day, so I took my watch off and I trusted my first AD and my cinematographer as well, who would just quietly whisper in my ear and be like, "Don't worry, you got it, let's just move on." I'm like, okay. And then the first AD was just like, "We better wrap this up, let's shoot the next one." And then having 2 actresses who just pretty much nailed it every single time. And I would say almost every time we did more than one take, it was because of me, not because of them. So that really helped get us all done in one day. It's great.
As someone who loves short films, I sometimes wonder where short films go. I mean, I think it's getting better, but I remember, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, we would show a lot of great short films, and then I would just never see them again. I say, where do these films go? I mean, I wish there were like films where you could eventually find them on a DVD or a streamer, but where do short films go after festivals? I'll start with James.
There's a handful of streaming platforms where I see a lot of short films. Okay. One that I have been speaking to recently, and a handful of others, and a handful that are specifically focused on queer content as well. I still don't know myself necessarily if the pursuit of a separate entity that is the distributor is as viable an option, or not as it would be with a feature. But there are streaming platforms, and there's a great YouTube platform I know called Amaletto that specifically showcases short films that have played at Oscar qualifying festivals like this one.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, there are a handful of places.
Okay.
And then sometimes just Vimeo on demand, Vimeo staff picks. Yeah.
Great. Jessica?
Yeah, I don't know. So this is a really helpful question for me, actually. We're right at that. As I said before, we're sort of coming to the end of our festival run. There's going to be a few more after this, and then looking for a place to land permanently. So I'm interested to hear all the other answers.
Great. And Dave?
As I mentioned, this film was made for the Hump Film Festival, which does pay the filmmakers who are accepted into the festival. And during normal times, they have a countrywide tour where they have in theater, exhibitions of the collection of humps that are chosen for that year, and then the filmmakers get a percentage of that ticket prices. And then also, I recently sold a short to the Frameline distribution program where they repackage the shorts and sell them to like airlines and stuff like that. So that's an option. But I think that shorts are most useful for what we're doing right now, which is meeting other filmmakers who are just starting out. Back in the day when I had my very first short accepted into Outfest in 2001, I'm still like best friends with a lot of the filmmakers that I met that summer, and that is not nothing. That's creative capital. That's forming friendships and connections with other filmmakers who are just starting out. And I get frustrated sometimes that I haven't yet made my feature. Fruit Bowl, the documentary Fruit Bowl, will definitely be my first feature. I'm in the process of ushering that through, but it's a huge undertaking and it's going to take years. So I feel like shorts are great in the meantime, because like if all you ever did was work on a feature and you debuted it and you'd never had that experience of going to festivals before, then you're going to kind of be at a loss on what to do. And I feel like shorts allow you that time to sort of figure out, well, what is a festival for, and what purpose does it serve, and how can I do this?
Final question. What are each of you working on next? I'll start with you again, Dave.
Yeah, I've filmed over 60 interviews for Fruit Bowl, and my goal is to film 100. And once I've done that, and I get a few more female identified interviewees, which I still need very much to do, I'll have a more diverse, sort of archive of interviews to draw from. And then I'm going to start to structure a feature film or a TV series that kind of takes viewers through the queer coming of age process from the very first understanding of sex up until adulthood, where we sort of figured out what we do and don't like when it comes to our sexuality. So that's the goal.
Great. Okay. James?
I in real life, when my mother was dying, I found out that my father was a porn director.
Okay.
So that is now the premise of a TV pilot that I've crafted called For Years to Come, which has been in development for the past year. And our crowdfunding campaign launches on Monday, the 27th. Right. And the goal is to go into pre-pro at the end of the year and shoot in LA early next year.
Nice. Sounds fun.
I'm excited.
And Jessica?
Yeah, I want to watch both those things. I'm currently writing a web series, which delves into, it's sort of, I guess, inspired by my real life experiences as an 18-year-old working in a Blockbuster, and scouring through the art house section to try and find some representation on film to help me figure out how to be what I realised I was in amongst all the rom-coms and movies with hetero couples on the covers.
Oh my God, that happened to me. I worked at Blockbuster in high school, And the first queer film I ever saw was Morris, because I found it in the library there.
That's my experience, but with Bound. So
I still feel like I'm looking for that film where it's queer characters actually played by queer actors. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to mention, I have to plug my website address just because I'm one of those podcasters, but you can find my podcast on fruitbowlpodcast.com. So.
Great. This has been so much fun. Thank you all for joining us. Jessica, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for your sharing your films with us and our audience. I'm sure our audiences are going to really like them a lot. Thank you all again.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks so much.